In the relentless busyness of modern life, we have lost the rhythm between work and rest. Because we do not rest, we lose our way. We miss the compass points that would show us where to go. We bypass the nourishment that we need. We miss the quiet that would give us wisdom. We miss the joy and love. Poised by a hypnotic belief that good things come only through unceasing determination, tireless effort, and hard work, we can never truly rest. And for that, our lives are in danger. Welcome to Sincerely Me, a podcast about self-discovery and inner work so you can cultivate a deeper relationship to yourself and show up more fully in your work and life. My name is Tallia and I'm honored to be your host. Hi everyone, welcome back to the podcast. In the spirit of rest, which is the topic of today's episode, I would love to invite all of us, including myself, to start this episode by taking a minute and just slowing down. Because if you're anything like me, you're jumping from one thing to the next, from, breakfast into the car, from one meeting into a phone call with a client, from recording an interview to recording another podcast episode. And it's really easy to not give yourself time in between to actually transition and fully be present in the next thing. So I want to invite you to take the next, let's say, 10 breaths to actually arrive, catch up with yourself, and mentally, emotionally, physically meet yourself where you are right now. All right. That is hard, man. I felt the need to make that time shorter for some reason. The urgency, the constant state of urgency, and like, okay, we're done. Let's move on. Let's keep going. Get started with the episode. I don't know if you felt any of that, but I definitely did. I hope you take this into your days and weeks and months and years and lives. It's important to give ourselves that time to find stillness and just arrive into whatever room, whatever situation, whatever experience we're about to head into. So, today's episode is all about finding rest, renewal, and delight in your busy life. A lot of what I'll be talking about today has come from a book that I am obsessing over, and it's called Sabbath by Muller. I'll be linking it in the show notes for all of you. That is the excerpt I started the episode with today about the importance of rest and how our lives are quote unquote in danger by not listening to the rhythm and by not finding the rhythm between work and rest for ourselves. A big part of what he talks about is how all life requires that rhythm, the rhythm of rest. Our body has the rhythm between waking activity and the need for sleep. There's a rhythm in the way the night transitions into morning and morning into night. There is a rhythm in seasons the growth of spring and summer and how that's quieted by the dormancy of fall and winter, how our hearts rest after each beat, how our lungs rest between the exhale and the inhale, and how we've just lost that rhythm. And something that stuck with me that he shares is that we don't gauge the value of seasons by how quickly they change. We don't gauge the value of seasons by how quickly they change. And I'm reading an excerpt from his book now on page 67. He says, "Every season brings forth its bounty in its own time, and our life is richer when we can take time to savor the fruit of each. In the fall, we chop and carry our wood, gather the harvest, rake leaves, prepare our home for winter, and give thanks. In the winter, we are dormant, a time for quiet generosities and reflection on the endurance of inner light in the midst of darkness. In the spring, we prepare the soil for planting. We feed the soil and plant what is needed. We take delight in the flowers. In the summer, we tend to the garden, and we rest in the freedom of long days and warm nights, losing ourselves in the gifts of sweet air and time." And basically, he goes on to say how, success is so counter to this idea. Success is so about urgency and the next thing and working hard and being relentless and effort, always pushing forward, always. But that's not where we can gauge the value of our lives. It's not in the speed of life. And one of the quotes he also shares by Gandhi is that simply there's more to life than merely increasing its speed. And for me, that was such a good reminder, because again, it's so easy to get caught up in the speed of life, in the hurriedness, in the on to the next mentality. And so what I'm going to do today is share a couple different practices to help you find rest, to help you actually practice rest, which almost seems a little counterintuitive, but it's helpful to have a structure and examples, because when we think of rest, we think of doing nothing. And for us to go from full speed to absolutely zero can be hard and is in some ways unrealistic for the conditioning we've kind of put ourselves through. So one of the first things he recommends, and is one of my favorites, honestly, is to create time and space to be unreachable, unavailable, and undisturbed. I don't know about you, but I can't remember the last time I was unreachable or unavailable. My phone is always on me. There's always some kind of distraction around me. And we've probably all gotten super good at still performing well despite distraction. And we've all gotten great at multitasking and managing an inbox while on a phone call, while checking texts, while taking the dog out, while doing whatever else. But he talks about how important it is to create designated time and space to be undisturbed. And more specifically, to choose one device that you tend to use a lot, whether it's a computer or a cell phone or something else, and to turn it off if and when you can. So that's the first one, creating time and space to be undisturbed, unavailable, and unreachable. Oh, that just makes me want to take a deep breath and relax. The idea of being unreachable is so nice. Okay. The second one that I also love is called the resting box. So at the end of each week, create a box. It could be like a physical, actual box. It could be a mason jar. It could be whatever it is that can contain pieces of paper. And what you do is write down on little pieces of paper all the things you want to leave behind, that you want to put to rest for the weekend, all the things that remain unfinished from the week, any concerns, any thoughts you're having, anything that you feel like will not allow you to fully rest over the weekend. Write them down and put them in this resting box. Put these things to rest, leave them behind, and allow all of those cares and thoughts to melt away. And you don't have to worry about forgetting. You don't have to worry about things not being tended to, because they're written down. They're just being put to rest for a couple days. All right. Another one that I really like is to choose a time to stop. Now, What I mean by that is choose something that you do every day that will kind of be an indication or an indicator for you to take a moment and take one deep breath. It doesn't have to be this whole 10, 20, 30-minute situation, but he says every time you touch a doorknob, have that be a reminder to breathe deeply. Every time your phone rings, have that be a chance to begin again and be mindful in that moment. Every time you reach a stoplight and it's a red light, take a chance to take a couple deep breaths. Every time you reach the top of the stairs, every time you turn on your computer, every time you answer an email. So pick one thing that you want to serve as that reminder and build a habit around that. Integrate it into what's already happening in your day-to-day life, instead of trying to find extra time or extra space outside of what you already have going on. Some other recommendations that he provides. One is to find time to be silent, like intentional silence. A good friend of mine shared with me the other day that every morning, every Sunday, her and her partner take like 3 hours in the morning, 9 to 12, to be silent, to just spend time with themselves. Even if they're in the same room, they're turning inward a little bit. They're doing whatever they want to be doing, but they're doing it on their own and they're doing it in silence. They're not filling space with words. They're actually connecting to themselves. And also there's a lot around mindful eating, right? So every time you sit down for a meal, and maybe it's just once a week, maybe it's your Friday night dinner, maybe it's your Monday morning breakfast, but to take that chance to actually savor the meal and give thanks for every single thing on that plate, and to really pay attention to the tastes and the colors and the smells, and to just soak yourself in the experience, to absorb every sense, right? Sight, sound, smell, taste. We also tend to zip through our meals and not recognize how our bodies actually feel when we eat or after we eat. So that's another great practice. Others are slow walks in nature. These can also be in your own house. You don't have to go outside particularly, but the point is unhurried, aimless walking. There's nowhere to go, nowhere to be. You're just paying attention to how your feet are touching the ground and moving slowly. Others that you probably are more familiar with are simply watching the breath, watching where the breath rests in your body, watching how it feels, the temperature of the breath, the speed of the breath, the rhythm of the breath. And the last one that I'll share is to choose a quote or a poem, a passage, a scripture, and reflect on it. Set a timer for 10 minutes and just reflect on the words and see what meaning arises for you. So yeah, those are a couple ways to help you let the hurry of the world fall away for just a moment and to reconnect to yourself and to find that rhythm. And that rhythm's going to look differently for all of us, but what is your rhythm going to look like, and how will you integrate this rhythm between work and rest into your life? According to Wayne, our lives depend on it. While I was away this weekend, I took the opportunity in between things, like after my shower, before getting dressed to go to dinner, to just sit on the couch with nothing to do. And we're so quick to either reach for our phones, turn on the TV, play some music, or just talk to whoever's with us or around us. It's so rare that we do nothing. Like doing nothing is so foreign. And I don't know if it's out of fear of boredom, fear of finally facing some things that we don't really want to face. It could be a lot of different reasons, but doing nothing during the in-betweens, in these transitions from one thing to the next, for just 30 seconds to slow down and catch up with myself was such a game changer. And I hope you take a chance to see how it feels for you and see what it does for you as well. One other thing that I'll add here is that doing nothing almost requires a mindset shift, because rest is something. You have so much to gain from resting. And when we think about doing nothing, we just assume that there's no value to gain or that there's nothing we'll take away from it, when in fact it's completely the opposite thing. So I'd almost encourage you to erase the phrase doing nothing and replace it with intentional rest, because that's what we're going for here. All right, let's head into a few moments of mindful meditation, shall we? So I invite you to get comfortable, whether you're sitting, lying down. Ideally, you're not behind the wheel. And as you start to get comfortable, I invite you to turn your attention to first the sounds in the room and what you hear. And then moving into sight. So take a moment to just look around you and notice what's around you. Notice the colors, notice the textures. Take a few moments here to visually immerse yourself in your environment. And next, I'd invite you to pay attention to your sense of smell. What do you smell right now? And if there's no distinct smell around you, just notice the way your breath feels. Notice the temperature, notice the force, notice what it feels like to breathe in through your nose. And then we will move on to taste. Noticing all the little nooks and crannies inside of your mouth, paying attention to how it feels, which will then also take us to tactile, right? Touch. Whether it's touching your skin, feeling the clothes on your body, choose something to touch and pay attention to how it feels. Connecting to your senses in the moment is such a powerful and easy way to become present and to ground yourself. It's hard for us to think about the future or worry about the past when we're so absorbed in what we're seeing, feeling, tasting, smelling, touching in the moment. And the key here, again, is the slowness. We're so conditioned to move quickly. But taking a couple minutes to move slowly will actually allow you to be more efficient throughout the rest of your day. Rest is where energy comes from. And over the next few moments, I invite you to take 5 deep breaths, the deepest breaths you'll take today, inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the mouth, recognizing at the same time, maybe repeating a mantra in your mind that you are safe. The breath signals safety. Inhaling through the nose. And exhaling through the mouth. 4 more times on your own time. Letting your shoulders relax, releasing any tension you're holding on to that's tied to any sense of urgency or hurriedness in your life. Relaxing your jaw, releasing the heaviness. Letting go of whatever no longer serves you. Releasing any expectation. Letting go of any sense of time. Returning to that place of rest and stillness that's always there for you to access. If you're willing to quiet the noise around you, if you're willing to create the time and space, there's always a way to slow down. And when you're ready, open your eyes if they've been closed. Otherwise, start bringing some movement back to your fingers and toes. Again, kind of meeting yourself where you're at, arriving back into your space, mentally, physically, emotionally. And I hope you take a moment to thank yourself for taking the time. It's important, and we forget it, and it's not on the top of the priority list. It's not something we value, but I invite you and I encourage you to value rest, to value the rhythm, to value time, and to take it. There is more to life than merely increasing its speed. So here is to slowing down, taking a moment, and returning to a place of joy and love and rest. If you are in a season that is calling for rest, if your rhythm is in need of some stillness and pausing, then I would love for you to join me, Darrah, Brustein, and Lena Franklin. We are hosting a one-day retreat called the Realign Retreat, meant to help people find the time and space to rest and realign with who they are and recenter, pause, reflect. And yeah, it'll be hosted at Serenbe here about 30 miles south of Atlanta, one-day retreat. And it'll be full of guided meditations, group discussions, time spent outdoors, silent reflection time, all in the service of helping you come back to a place of rest so you can go back out into the world and have the energy and passion and love you might be feeling a bit depleted of. So I've linked all about the Realign Retreat in the show notes, and Lena Franklin, Darrah Brustein, they've both been guests on the podcast. Lena is a mindful psychotherapist, and we've spoken on the podcast about finding strength in suffering. And Darrah Brustein is an expert in life design, serial entrepreneur, author, doing some incredible work out in the world as well. I'm so honored and excited to be joining the two of them in co-hosting this retreat. So check out all the details in the link below, and we hope you'll join us. As always, thank you for tuning in to the podcast. We will catch you on next week's episode. Sincerely, me.